Hello everyone, and welcome back to Game Easy, Roll Good. We are beginning our series here on the base class changes for the spellcasting classes in the Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook for 2024. These will all be available in a playlist for the spellcasting classes. That'll be either down in the description below, or it's available on my channel page as well. Also, if you haven't taken the time to subscribe to this channel yet and you keep coming back to these videos, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It helps me out quite a bit. But we're looking at Bards today, and Bards have been bombastically bolstered. They have quite a few very positive changes, so let's go ahead and get started and see what we're working with. Starting with the core traits, Bards now have only proficiency with simple weapons. This removes their previous proficiencies for hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, and short swords. And as for the starting equipment, much like every other base class in 2024, the equipment package has changed from a selection of different kinds of equipment to either option A being a specific equipment package and maybe some leftover gold, or option B is basically the replacement for starting wealth as compared to 2014. And how that works out is that it's generally about average of what you would have rolled previously for the optional starting wealth in 2014. Sometimes it's slightly less, sometimes it's a little more, sometimes it's exactly average. As for the multi-class inheritance for the Bard, again, multi-class inheritance is what you get if you multi-class your first level into Bard from another class. You get the hit die, light armor, one skill from the Bard spell, or one skill from the Bard skill list, and one musical instrument. So this is effectively unchanged. Starting at level 1, we have Bardic Inspiration. So Bardic Inspiration can now apply to a creature who can see or hear you, whereas previously it was only creatures who can hear you. This lasts now for 1 hour. This is up from 10 minutes. And you can now use it when you fail a d20 test, specifically when you fail one. And a d20 test, of course, is an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. Previously, in 2014, you would need to use this before you know the results of the roll. Sometimes it didn't always play out like that. Like sometimes the DM would just tell you what DC you're trying to make, and so you knew whether or not you should try to add your Bardic Inspiration to it. But specifically now, it's when you know that you've failed a D20 test, you can choose to add your Bardic Inspiration to try to turn that failure into a success. Moving on to spellcasting, you can now replace a Bard cantrip with another Bard cantrip whenever you gain a level in Bard. Previously, you weren't able to change this, although I think you could from like the optional rules in like either Tasha's or Xanathar's. I can't remember which. I can never remember which one is which. And then the number of spells is unchanged, but the number of spells scales a little more slowly in later levels. You get access to 22 spells at level 20. This is down from 22 spells at level 17. So you don't get that max amount of spells until level 20. I'm not really sure what the point about slowing down the spell slot progression was at the mid to higher levels. I do believe that the Bard overall gets a greater number of spells available just from features, and especially with your subclass features and things like that. And they do have a very significant change to their, the magical secrets. And we'll take a look at that a little bit later because it's actually pretty nuts. Going on to the spell list changes for the Bard. So many things have been added pretty much at each level. For cantrips, they've added Starry Wisp. At level 1, we have Color Spray and Command. Level 2, we have Aid, Enlarge Reduce, and Mirror Image. At level 3, we have Mass Healing Word and Slow. At level 4, we have Charm Monster and Phantasmal Killer. At level 5, we have Rary's Telepathic Bond and Yolande's Regal Presence. At level 6, we have Hero's Feast. At level 7, we have Power Word Fortify and Prismatic Spray. At level 8, we have Antipathy and Sympathy, as well as Befuddlement, which is a rebranded Feeble Mind. And then at level 9, we have Prismatic Wall. So again, this is just a comparison from the 2014 Player's Handbook to the 2024 Player's Handbook. Many of the spells here that don't have an asterisk next to them were already from optional expanding spell lists in the Xanathar's Guide to Everything or Elemental Evil Player's Companion and other books like that. But if you are in a situation where you're playing from 2024 forward, these are the spells that you would have access to as compared to the previous Player's Handbook. Spells with the asterisk next to them are brand new to the Bard. In the case of like Starry Wisp and Yolande's Regal Presence, they are brand new to Dungeons and Dragons in general. And if in DM permitting, if you're not just playing 2024 forward, the other optional spells that are on the optional spell list for Bards, if you go down to the Legacy class for Bards and go to the optional features, they'll have a spell list of expanded spells there. If there are spells on there that aren't on this list, and DM permitting, you could still have access to those spells. Moving on to level 2, we have Expertise. This is now available at level 2, up from level 3. The Song of Rest feature was just fully removed. Song of Rest wasn't super powerful, but I'm a little surprised it was removed because it was still helpful. It didn't hurt anything. It didn't, it wasn't overpowered. It's just a fun little thing that the Bard could do. I think they easily could have just improved upon it and just made it a better feature. I just legitimately don't know why they removed it at all. At level 5, we have the Font of Inspiration. This additionally allows you to expend a spell slot to restore a use of Bardic Inspiration, no action required. So the Font of Inspiration was what allows you to regain all of your Bardic Inspiration on either a short or long rest. But now you can also expend a spell slot to restore a use of Bardic Inspiration as well. So it's sort of like, it's almost like sorcery points in that way, but not quite the same thing. Moving on to level 7, we have Counter Charm. This is available at level 7 now, where it was previously 6 before, but now it works a bit differently. So it says, you can use musical notes or words of power to disrupt mind-influencing effects. If you or a creature within 30 feet of you fails a saving throw against an effect that applies Charmed or Frightened condition, you can take a reaction to cause the save to be re-rolled, and the new roll has advantage. So this comes online one level later, but it's way more usable than the 2014 version where you had to kind of predict when a Charmed or Frightened condition was going to happen, and because it only lasted one round, and if it didn't happen, then you just wasted your whole turn. You basically just time walked yourself in Magic the Gathering terms. So this is a much better feature. It's just a wonderful change. Even if it is available one level later, it's just so much more usable. Just very happy with that they made this actually just a good feature. Moving on to level 9, Expertise is available at level 9, up from level 10. Otherwise, it's no different. At level 10, we have Magical Secrets. Okay, so this has changed quite a bit in 2024. It was nerfed ever so slightly, but then it was buffed very greatly. So to begin with, you must choose from the Bard, Cleric, Druid, and Wizard spell lists. This is down from all spell lists, so you can't choose Paladin spells that are only available to the Paladin, or Ranger spells, Warlock spells, etc. You can still immediately prepare 2 of these spells when you get this feature by taking one as the new spell, and then replacing a spell you used to have prepared with a new spell from one of these lists. So you still kind of get 2 spells, but you have to kind of do it the way that the Bard does it. Previously, this kind of just gave you 2 new spells. And then instead of granting additional magical secrets at higher levels, you can now instead prepare a spell from these spell lists whenever you can prepare an additional spell, or replace already prepared spells when you gain a Bard level. So what I mean by that is that, so you get this at level 10. So let's say at level 10 you have, I don't remember how many spells you have at level 10, but you get 1 new spell, and then you can also replace one of your old spells that you had prepared with a different spell. So let's say I wanted to start picking spells from the Wizard spell list that a Bard doesn't have access to. So I can not only pick my new spell from the Wizard spell list, but I can replace one of my old Bard spells with a Wizard spell, for which I have spell slots. And then every time I gain a level in Bard, if I get a new spell at that level, again, I can choose a new spell from the Wizard spell list, or I can always replace at least one of my old Bard spells with a spell from the Wizard spell list, or the Druid spell list, or the Cleric spell list, or the Bard spell list, So this is really extremely powerful. Basically, by level 20, you can almost completely rework your spell list such that 19 of the 22 spells that you have prepared are not Bard spells. You can have a spell list basically full of a mix of Cleric, Druid, and Wizard spells, and basically be a mishmash of all those classes, basically picking all of the best spells from those classes, without having to actually be them or anything like that. So that's actually a pretty wild change. I'm not even sure, because they say that the Wizard is basically the most powerful spellcaster. Part of that is because they have non-prepared ritual casting, but it's also because they just have access to the most powerful spells. But if the Bard can just essentially steal their most powerful spells, then they're basically just on par with the Wizard. The Wizard can also obviously learn as many spells as they have time and money and resources to learn and copy into their spell book. But if you're just playing through a quick adventure going up to those higher levels, then the Wizard probably isn't going to have time to do that. So the Bard and the Wizard might be kind of one for one in that regard. And then continuing with magical secrets, notable losses from other spell lists include, for the Paladin, you don't have access to Crusader Mantle or Find Greater Steed anymore. For the Ranger, you don't have access to Swift Quiver anymore, which is actually even better now in 2024. Warlock, you can pick up Eldritch Blast without actually going into Warlock. Armor of Agathis, Hunger of Hadar, Shadow of Moil, those are all pretty good spells that previously you could have picked up with your Magical Secrets, but now you can't anymore. Jumping straight to level 18, the base classes for spellcasters are pretty feature light because picking up new spells is kind of the features that you get. The Bard gets Superior Inspiration. This was their old capstone, but it's changed slightly, so it now restores 2 uses of inspiration if you have less than 2 when you roll initiative. So that's always good because then you get 2 more inspirations to use for that combat. So basically, as long as you're rolling initiative, as long as you're getting into encounters, you effectively have infinite. Semi-infinite inspiration because you're always getting 2 back with every initiative. There's a little bit of cheese that people were talking about. DM I don't know how long your DM will let you do things like this, but if you get into a quick fight real quick, just with someone who's way below your level who isn't a threat to you, and then you just kind of back out of it and say, "Hey man, I'm sorry," and then you get your inspiration back and kind of farm it that way to make sure that you always have some. Again, you probably can't pull that off too many times, but if you want to kind of cheekily restore your inspiration once you're at this kind of level, and then there's a lot of similar features that trigger on initiative like this for other classes. Probably don't do it too many times or else your DM might kind of put a stop to that one. At level 19, just like every class, this is where epic boons are unlocked. And again, epic boons are not tied to the class level 19. It is the character level 19, but specifically you need to hit level 19 at a level where you're getting an ability score increase or a feat unlocked. So let's say that you are a level 15 Bard and a level 3 Paladin, for example. That's a level 18, a character level 18, of course. So when you take your 16th level in Bard, that is when you get a feat or ability score increase. So that's when you can actually choose an epic boon if you're multi-classed like that. Otherwise, you also do get an ability score increase or a feat at level 19 if you're just pure classed into Bard. So you'd be able to choose an epic boon there as well. Finally, we're moving on to the capstone of the Bard. The Bard has Words of Creation. Again, this is a brand new capstone. It says, you have mastered 2 of the Words of Creation, the Words of Life and Death. You therefore always have Power Word Heal and Power Word Kill spells prepared. When you cast either spell, you can target a second creature with it if that creature is within 10 feet of the first target. So this is basically allows you to twin Power Word Kill, which is pretty crazy. If you're ever in a situation where you have 2 targets within 10 feet of each other who have less than 100 health, and then you can just immediately kill them both. Also, just completely healing 2 allies to full health and removing most of their conditions, also extremely powerful. This effectively also increases your total prepared spells account by 2, up to 24. So the base class table says you have 22 spells at level 20, but this does not include these 2 spells. So you would have 24 technically, plus whatever spells you get from your subclass or anything like that. So let's look at the summary for the Bard. We can see that, again, weapons were slightly nerfed, but most Bards aren't using their weapons too much, except for specifically like the Valor Bard or the Swords Bard, but they get their own proficiencies in that subclass. Song of Rest was just completely removed. So that's a little unfortunate. I would have liked to see that maybe buffed a little bit more, but they just strangely removed it for whatever reason. But overall, they were just you'll see that every class was just basically buffed across the board. The spellcasting classes were their buffs are maybe a little more subtle, except for the Bard with their magical secrets, allowing you to basically completely redo your spell list as you level up past level 10. But overall, I'm very actually excited about the Bard. I would love to play a high level Bard to see how much you can really customize your spell list to just make you this weird mash of having the best Druid spell, Cleric spell, Wizard spells, whatever it is that you choose. Just overall, just such crazy power that's coming from the base Bard right now. And again, this is not even including the subclasses. So a lot of exciting things happening with Bard. Let me know what you think about it down in those comments. What kind of spell list would you build if you were building a Bard, high level Bard with your magical secrets? What spells would you choose from your Druid, Cleric, or Wizard spell list to make them just the most powerful thing you can think of? Yeah, let me know down in those comments what that is for you. And again, while you're going down to those comments, please hit that like button. If you like these videos and you want to see more of them, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I have new videos coming out every Wednesday. We are going to continue our spellcasting class changes with the, B to C is Cleric. So Cleric will be the next one. So I appreciate your guys' time, and I'll see you in the next one.